I should have known something was wrong when Tyler stopped answering my texts. We'd been together for 2 years, living in a cramped apartment in Austin, Texas, planning our future together. I was working as an assistant at a small marketing firm, making barely enough to cover rent, while Tyler bounced between odd jobs and his big ideas that never seemed to materialize. The last conversation we had was about moving in together officially. I'd found a slightly bigger place, nothing fancy, but it had 2 bedrooms, one we could turn into a home office for his freelance graphic design work. "I don't know, Dakota," he'd said, not meeting my eyes. "Maybe we should wait a bit longer." I thought he was just being practical. Money was tight for both of us. I was living on ramen noodles and hope, putting every spare dollar toward building some kind of future. Then he vanished. 3 days of unanswered calls, 3 days of texts left unread, 3 days of me wondering if something terrible had happened to him. On the 4th day, I got my answer. I was scrolling through Instagram during my lunch break, eating a sad desk salad, when I saw it. Tyler's story, him and a blonde woman I didn't recognize, laughing at some upscale restaurant I could never afford. Her manicured hand was intertwined with his, and she was wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. My hands shook as I clicked on her profile. Amber Sinclair, 2.3 million followers, lifestyle influencer. Her bio read, "Living my best life, brand partnerships. Amber at sinclairmanagement.com. I scrolled through her feed. Designer clothes, expensive vacations, sponsored posts for luxury brands, everything I wasn't, everything I couldn't afford to be. Then I saw Tyler's comment on her latest post. "So lucky to have found someone on my level, on his level." I read those words over and over until they burned into my brain. On his level, as if I had been beneath him this entire time. As if the 2 years we'd spent together, the dreams we'd shared, the future we'd planned, all of it was just him settling until something better came along. I locked my phone and ran to the bathroom, where I cried until my mascara ran in black streaks down my cheeks. My coworker Jenny found me there 20 minutes later. "Dakota, what happened?" I couldn't even form the words. I just showed her the Instagram post. "Oh honey," she said, pulling me into a hug. "I'm so sorry. What a complete asshole." He said she was on his level, Jenny, his level. Like I was just ... not good enough. That's not true, and you know it. You're worth 10 of him. But in that moment, standing in the fluorescent lit bathroom of a company that paid me $28,000 a year, I didn't feel worth much of anything. I went home that night to Arma. Tyler's stuff was gone. His clothes, his laptop, his stupid collection of vintage band t-shirts. He'd taken everything while I was at work, like a thief in the night. He'd left one thing, a note on the kitchen counter. "Dakota, I'm sorry it had to end this way. I've found someone who understands my ambitions better. I hope you understand. Take care." Tyler. I crumpled the note and threw it across the room. Then I sat on my second-hand couch and cried until I had no tears left. But somewhere, between the tears and the rage, something else began to grow. A cold, hard determination that I'd never felt before. Tyler thought I wasn't on his level. Fine. I'd show him what level I could reach. I pulled out my laptop and started researching. Marketing agencies, business strategies, success stories of people who'd built empires from nothing. I read until my eyes burned, taking notes, making plans. If Tyler wanted someone successful, someone ambitious, someone on his level, then that's exactly what I'd become. Not for him, I was done with him, but for me, to prove to myself that I was worth more than his casual dismissal. I looked around my tiny apartment, at my thrift store furniture and empty refrigerator, and made a promise to myself. This was rock bottom. The only way from here was up. I opened a new document on my laptop and typed Dakota's 5-year plan. Then I started writing goals, strategies, timelines. I was going to build something so successful, so impressive, that Tyler would regret every word he'd ever said about my level. Was going to show him and myself exactly what Dakota Martinez was capable of. The girl he'd left behind was gone. In her place was someone hungrier, someone determined, someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Tyler had no idea what he'd just unleashed. 6 months after Tyler's disappearing act, I was working 18-hour days and loving every minute of it. The pain of his betrayal had crystallized into pure ambition, and I channeled every ounce of hurt into building something extraordinary. I'd started freelancing on the side, taking on small marketing projects for local businesses. My boss at the firm, Mr. Henderson, noticed my improved performance and gave me more responsibilities. But it wasn't enough. I wanted more. "You're different lately," Jenny observed one day as we grabbed coffee. "More, intense." "I'm focused," I replied, checking my phone for client messages. "I have goals now." "This is about Tyler, isn't it?" I looked up from my phone. "This is about me realizing I was settling for mediocrity. Tyler just happened to be the wake-up call I needed." It was partially true. Tyler's cruel words had lit a fire under me, but what kept that fire burning was discovering I actually had talent. Real talent. My freelance clients were getting incredible results, and word was spreading. My breakthrough came when I landed a contract with a struggling local restaurant. Their social media presence was non-existent, their marketing budget was tiny, but I saw potential. I created a comprehensive digital strategy, managed their social accounts, and within 3 months, they were booked solid. "Dakota, you're a miracle worker," the owner, Maria, told me as she handed me a bonus check. "We've never seen results like this." That's when I knew I was ready to take the leap. I quit my job at the marketing firm despite Mr. Henderson's protests and used my savings, every penny I'd scraped together, to start my own agency. I called it Apex Digital Marketing, and I ran it out of my tiny apartment. The first year was brutal. I lived on instant coffee and determination, working around the clock to build my client base. I learned everything I could about digital marketing, social media algorithms, content creation, and business development. I took online courses, attended virtual conferences, and networked relentlessly. Slowly, clients started coming. Small businesses at first, then medium-sized companies. My results spoke for themselves. I had a gift for understanding what made people tick, what made them buy, what made them engage. By year 2, I'd hired my first employee, a brilliant young woman named Sarah, who handled content creation while I focused on strategy and client relations. We moved out of my apartment and into a small office space in downtown Austin. "You know," Sarah said one day as we celebrated landing our biggest client yet, "you should really update your social media. Your personal brand could be huge." I'd been so focused on building the business that I'd neglected my own online presence. My Instagram still had photos from my relationship with Tyler, photos I couldn't bear to look at, let alone delete. That weekend, I finally did it. I deleted every trace of Tyler from my social media and started fresh. New photos, new bio, new energy. I began sharing my journey, my struggles, my victories. The response was overwhelming. People connected with my story. The girl who'd been left behind and built an empire. The underdog who'd refused to stay down. My follower count grew rapidly, and with it, my business opportunities. By year 3, Apex Digital Marketing had 15 employees and was handling campaigns for major brands. We'd moved into a sleek office space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Austin skyline. I was featured in Austin Business Journal as 30 Under 30 Rising Stars. But the real validation came when Forbes reached out. "We'd like to feature you in our 30 Under 30 list," the journalist said during our phone interview. "Your story is exactly what our readers want to hear. Resilience, innovation, and incredible growth." The Forbes feature changed everything. Suddenly, I was getting speaking requests, podcast interviews, and business opportunities I'd never dreamed of. Apex Digital Marketing became the go-to agency for companies wanting to work with someone who understood the power of authentic storytelling. I bought a penthouse apartment in downtown Austin, traded my beat-up Honda for a Tesla, and started wearing the kind of clothes I used to only see in magazines. But the real satisfaction came from the work itself, helping businesses grow, creating jobs, building something meaningful. One evening, as I stood in my new office, looking out at the city lights, Sarah knocked on my door. "Dakota, you need to see this," she said, holding up her phone with a strange expression. On the screen was an Instagram post from Amber Sinclair, but instead of her usual luxury lifestyle content, it was a long caption about difficult times and reassessing priorities. The comments were full of people asking where Tyler was, why she'd been posting less frequently. "Keep scrolling," Sarah said. I scrolled through Amber's recent posts. The sponsored content had dried up. The luxury locations had been replaced by her apartment. The designer clothes were gone. "I did some digging," Sarah continued. "Apparently, Tyler convinced her to invest heavily in some cryptocurrency scheme. They lost everything. She's been trying to rebuild her brand, but the algorithm changes hit influencers hard this year. I stared at the phone, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Part of me felt vindicated the woman Tyler had chosen over me was struggling, but mostly, I felt nothing. Their problems seemed so small compared to the empire I'd built. There's more, Sarah said hesitantly. Tyler's been reaching out to people in the Austin marketing scene. He's looking for work. I handed the phone back to her. Good for him. I hope he finds something. And I meant it. I'd moved so far beyond the pain of his betrayal that his struggles felt like someone else's story. I had bigger things to focus on, like the expansion into Dallas I was planning, or the book deal I was negotiating. Tyler had thought I wasn't on his level. Now, I was so far above his level that I could barely see him from where I stood. But I had no idea that our paths were about to cross again, in the most unexpected way. For years after Tyler walked out of my life, I was sitting in my corner office, reviewing resumes for a new assistant position when Sarah knocked on my door with an expression I couldn't quite read. Dakota, we have a problem with the 3 p.m. interview. I looked up from the stack of applications. What kind of problem? You need to see for yourself. She handed me a resume, and my blood ran cold. Tyler James Morrison. There it was, in black and white. The man who'd shattered my heart was applying to be my assistant. He doesn't know it's your company, Sarah said quickly. The application came through our HR portal. He probably just saw Apex Digital Marketing and applied. I stared at his resume, noting the gaps in employment, the desperate attempt to make freelance gigs sound impressive, the obvious financial struggles hidden between the lines. What do you want to do? Sarah asked. I can call and cancel, say the position's been filled. I should have said yes, should have had Sarah send him a polite rejection email and moved on with my day, but something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was the desire to see how far he'd fallen, or maybe it was the opportunity to look him in the eye and show him exactly what he'd lost. No, I said, surprising myself. Let's see what he has to say. At exactly 3 p.m., Tyler walked into our reception area. I watched him through my office window, noting how different he looked. Gone was the confident swagger I remembered. His clothes were clean but clearly secondhand. His hair needed a cut, and he kept checking his phone nervously. He didn't recognize the company name on the wall, didn't realize he was sitting in the empire built by the woman he deemed not on his level. Send him in, I told Sarah through our intercom. I positioned myself behind my desk, back straight, hands folded, every inch the successful CEO I'd become. When the door opened and Tyler walked in, the look on his face was worth every sleepless night I'd spent building this company. Dakota, his voice was barely a whisper. I didn't know. Hello, Tyler, please, have a seat. He stood frozen in the doorway for a moment before slowly walking to the chair across from my desk. His eyes darted around the office, the awards on the walls, the city view, the expensive furniture, taking in the magnitude of what I'd built. I see you're interested in our assistant position, I said, my voice professionally neutral. Tell me about your qualifications. Dakota, he struggled to form words. I had no idea this was your company. Apex Digital Marketing. We're the largest independent digital marketing agency in Texas. Surely you researched the company before applying. His face flushed red. Yes, of course. I just, I didn't connect, You didn't connect that the CEO Dakota Martinez was the same Dakota you used to know. I let the question hang in the air. The one who wasn't on your level. Tyler's hands clenched in his lap. Dakota, about that, I was young and stupid. I said things I didn't mean. Oh, but you did mean them. You meant them when you disappeared without explanation. You meant them when you took all your things while I was at work. You meant them when you posted about finding someone on your level. I was wrong, he said quietly. I was so wrong about everything. I leaned back in my chair, studying him. Tell me, Tyler, what happened to Amber? Last I heard, you two were living your best life together. His face crumpled. We. It didn't work out. I made some bad investments, lost everything. She left when the money ran out. So she wasn't on your level either. Once your level changed. Dakota, please, I know I hurt you. I know I was an idiot, but I need this job. I'm behind on rent, my car's about to be repossessed, and I haven't had steady work in months. I opened his resume again, scanning it slowly. I see you've been doing freelance graphic design. How's that working out for you? It's challenging. The market is saturated, and I don't have the connections I used to. The connections you used to have, I repeated. You mean when you were with Amber? He nodded miserably. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Austin skyline. You know, Tyler, when you left me, I was making $28,000 a year as an assistant. I was eating ramen noodles for dinner and shopping at thrift stores. I was, by your definition, not on your level. I turned back to face him. This company now generates over $50 million in annual revenue. I employ 127 people. I own a penthouse downtown and a house in the hills. I've been featured in Forbes, Harvard Business Review, and Inc. magazine. I speak at conferences around the world. Tyler couldn't meet my eyes. So tell me, I continued, what level am I on now, Dakota? The position pays $35,000 a year. I interrupted. It involves managing my calendar, handling correspondence, and various administrative tasks. You'd be reporting directly to me. His head snapped up. You're offering me the job. I'm considering it. The question is, can you handle working for someone who used to be beneath your level? Tyler's face went through a series of emotions: shame, desperation, hope, and something that might have been relief. Yes, he said finally. Yes, I can handle it. Good, because if I hire you, Tyler, you'll see every day what you walked away from. You'll watch me run board meetings, close million-dollar deals, and build something extraordinary. You'll answer my phones, schedule my appointments, and watch me succeed beyond anything you ever imagined. I sat back down and picked up a pen. You'll start Monday at 8 a.m. sharp. Dress code is business professional. I assume you can manage that. Yes, I can. Thank you, Dakota. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet, I said, signing his offer letter. This isn't charity, Tyler. This is a front row seat to everything you lost when you decided I wasn't good enough for you. As he left my office with the signed paperwork, I felt a satisfaction I hadn't expected. Not revenge, exactly, but justice. The universe had a funny way of balancing the scales. Tyler thought he'd found someone on his level. Now he was about to discover what level I'd reached without him, and we were just getting started. Tyler's first day as my assistant was everything I'd hoped it would be and more. He arrived at 7:45 a.m., 15 minutes early, wearing a suit that had seen better days but was pressed and clean. I watched from my office as Sarah showed him to his desk positioned directly outside my door, where he'd have a perfect view of my success all day long. Good morning, Tyler, I said as I walked past his desk with my coffee. I need you to confirm my 10 a.m. with the Henderson Group, reschedule my lunch to 1 p.m., and prepare the quarterly reports for the board meeting. Of course, Dakota. Right away. It was strange hearing him say my name with such deference. For years ago he'd barely listened when I talked about my dreams. Now he hung on every word, frantically taking notes. The morning flew by in a series of meetings and calls. I was in full CEO mode, negotiating contracts, reviewing campaigns, making decisions that affected millions of dollars and hundreds of jobs. Through my glass office walls, I could see Tyler watching, his expression a mixture of awe and something that looked like regret. At lunch, I had a meeting with potential investors for our Dallas expansion. Tyler had booked us a table at the same upscale restaurant where I'd first seen him with Amber on Instagram. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ms. Martinez, the lead investor, said as we reviewed the expansion plans, "Your growth trajectory is remarkable. From startup to $50 million in revenue in just 4 years, that's the kind of vision we want to support. Thank you, Mr. Chen. I believe in thinking big and executing flawlessly. That's how you build something that lasts." As we discussed terms, I noticed Tyler at a nearby table, clearly struggling to afford his meal. He'd ordered the cheapest item on the menu and was nursing a single glass of water. The contrast wasn't lost on me. Here I was, discussing a multi-million-dollar expansion while my former boyfriend counted pennies back at the office. Tyler was waiting with my messages and a perfectly organized schedule for the rest of the day. "The Henderson Group confirmed for next week," he reported. "Your 3 p.m. called to push back 30 minutes, and Forbes wants to schedule a follow-up interview about the expansion." Forbes? I raised an eyebrow. "Handle that personally. Set it up for Thursday afternoon." "Of course." "And Dakota." He hesitated. "I wanted to say, watching you work today, seeing what you've built, it's incredible. I had no idea you had this in you. I looked at him steadily. I always had this in me, Tyler, you just never bothered to look. The weeks that followed established a routine. Tyler was actually a competent assistant, organized, punctual, and desperate to please. But more than that, he was a daily reminder of how far I'd come. Every morning, he'd bring me my coffee and brief me on the day's schedule. Every afternoon, he'd watch me close deals and make decisions that would have seemed impossible to the girl he'd left behind. Every evening, he'd see me leave for networking events, speaking engagements, and business dinners while he went home to his studio apartment. Dakota Sarah said one afternoon, "I have to ask, why did you really hire him?" I considered the question. Because he needed to see what he lost, and I needed to prove to myself that I'd truly moved beyond what he did to me. And have you moved beyond it? I looked through my office window at Tyler, who was diligently organizing files, his head down, his shoulders slightly hunched. I thought I had, but seeing him like this, it's not as satisfying as I expected. Maybe because you're not the same person who wanted revenge. She was right. The Dakota who'd cried in that bathroom 4 years ago would have reveled in Tyler's downfall. But the woman I'd become, the CEO, the leader, the success story, felt something different. Not pity, exactly, but a kind of detached understanding. The turning point came during our monthly all-hands meeting. I was presenting our quarterly results to the entire company, highlighting our growth, our new clients, our expansion plans. Tyler sat in the back, taking notes like all the other assistants. 4 years ago, I told the room, Apex Digital Marketing was just an idea, a dream born from necessity, fueled by determination, and built through the hard work of every person in this room. We've proven that with vision, dedication, and the right team, anything is possible. After the meeting, Tyler approached me hesitantly. "That was inspiring," he said. "The way you spoke about building something from nothing. I remember when you used to talk about your dreams, but I never really listened. I'm sorry for that." I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or false sincerity, but all I saw was genuine remorse and something that might have been admiration. "Tyler, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "When you left me for Amber, did you really think I wasn't good enough? Or were you just scared that I might actually succeed?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I think I was scared. You had this fire, this ambition, that made me feel small. Amber was easier. She was already successful, so I could ride her coattails without having to confront my own failures. And now I see that I was the one who wasn't good enough. Not for you, not for the life I thought I wanted." I threw away something real for something that looked good on Instagram. I nodded slowly. "Thank you for being honest." As I walked back to my office, I realized something had shifted. The anger I'd carried for 4 years, the need to prove Tyler wrong, the desire to show him what he'd lost, it was all fading. Not because I'd forgiven him, but because I'd outgrown the need for his validation. I'd built my empire to prove I was worthy, but somewhere along the way, I'd proven it to myself. Tyler's opinion, his regret, his admiration, none of it mattered anymore. I was successful not because I'd shown him up, but because I'd discovered who I really was when I stopped trying to be who he wanted me to be. The girl he'd left behind was gone. In her place was a woman who didn't need anyone's approval to know her worth, and that realization was more satisfying than any revenge could ever be.